Good morning. I'm Rabbi Alex Lazarus-Klein from Congregation Shir Shalom, and I welcome you to Crossroads. Crossroads is a joint production of Town Square Media and the Network of Religious Communities. The Network of Religious Communities is an organization of denominations, congregations, and religious organizations located in and serving Western New York. We are Baha'i, Buddhist, Christian, Hindu, Jewish, Muslim, Sikh, and Unitarian. Together celebrate the wonderful religious diversity of Western New York. On Crossroads, we discuss the life journey and community service of our guests. And today it is my pleasure to welcome a new friend of mine, Harvey Stein, who is a documentary maker and an activist. So, Harvey, why don't we start and just tell me how did these things go together? What is this title?
Well, I grew up in the USA, and then I moved to Israel. I made Aliyah as a Jewish person in 2006 to be with my Israeli wife. And I pretty much lived in Israel until last year. So Israel's a place of many conflicts, obviously. So being a filmmaker, I also made promos for nonprofits. But when I could raise the money, when I can raise the money, I make documentaries. And they're always about political or social or environmental conflicts or tough situations, definitely related to spending so much time in Israel. Yeah.
I think you also you bring a lot of hope, it seems, in your documentary, because there is a lot of what you're looking at is how to solve problems.
I cannot deny that. I'm a hopeful person. I could go on forever about hope. There's a great Israeli and Palestinian pair of peacemakers now, and I'm connected to a bunch of peacemakers, and they say hope doesn't descend from heaven. We make hope. It's one of their main things, and I fully subscribe to that. So my documentary projects try to make hope.
Sounds like a Bob Marley song. So why don't we get a little bit of your background? And you just came to Western New York, I think about a year ago, a little less than that. Tell me about your journey here and also what you think about, because you're not from this area. You've lived in various different places. What's the experience of coming to Western New York?
Well, first of all, I had no idea I would be coming here. Our son, who grew up most of his life in Israel, applied to University of Buffalo and got in. So this year, he's a freshman. So we wanted to be closer to him, at least in his freshman year. So we rented an apartment here. He lives in a dorm, and we see him quite often. So I never expected to move to Buffalo.
So what do you think? Since a lot of times, like me, I'd actually, before I moved here about almost 2 decades ago, when I moved here, the only thing I'd ever heard of was snow.
That is a very prevalent thing here. I have mixed emotions about that. I grew up in New York City, so I know about snow.
Yeah.
But my wife and I like Buffalo. It's very different than the New York metropolitan area. People tend to be friendly here. I talked to another friend of mine saying I was living in Buffalo, and he immediately said, "Oh yeah, that's like the Midwest."
It is. The strange thing about Western New York is we don't fit in anywhere. We're kind of right. We got 1 foot into Canada, 1 foot in the Midwest, 1 foot New Yorker, and 1 foot in Pennsylvania. I guess we're kind of like a hodgepodge of everything.
I spent a little time in Minneapolis a little while ago. Anyway, so I agree with the Midwestern description because people in Buffalo are very friendly. They're just generally just like people around the Midwest, very friendly, very helpful. You have been very friendly and helpful, personable, kind of satisfied with life in a way. I'm just summarizing briefly. So I like this, quote, Midwestern feeling in Buffalo. And we've been to Toronto once, so I also like the international feel. So we'll see. And there's a pretty big scene, of foundations, et cetera, cultural organizations. So it seems like a good place to do my documentary projects.
Wonderful. Well, I certainly love it here, and it's a great place. If you don't get scared off by it's not. It's more the cold. I mean, this was a very rough winter. Yeah, you bought Harvey's gesturing to your coat, and yes, you do need a very. I now have 5 different styles of coat, from the very warmest coat when it gets very cold to like a spring jacket. So you've been hard at work at a number of different things, but one is a wonderful new documentary that you are promoting. It's called Green Rebels, and it's a really interesting story about a gentleman named Yossi Abramowitz from Israel, and his journey to try to bring solar panels to different places outside of Israel, actually. Do you want to share a little bit about the project and how it came to be?
Totally. He actually is like me. He made Aliyah from Boston. He's a Jewish guy. We moved to Israel the same year, 2006. We happened to be neighbors in Jerusalem, and I met him, and I was totally inspired by him. I made a couple of promos for his. He has a solar energy company now in Israel, based in Jerusalem, and it just occurred to me he would be a great main character for a documentary. He, like me and many of us, is full of hope, full of ambition. In Judaism, there's a very famous term called tikkun olam, which goes back to the 16th century, to a rabbi in the 16th century. It basically means repairing the world. And Yossi is totally into repairing the world with introducing solar energy to the world. Which is a struggle. So he's totally hopeful, incredibly hardworking. So I started this project, and it's about 95% finished now, which is very fun to try to get it into the world. I love people witnessing my projects. I'm an extrovert. I'm a Leo. So that's a tiny bit. I can tell you more about it.
Yeah, well, I definitely want to hear more, and also about the process, because it just, I know with art, you have to have a lot of patience, or what we call savlanut in Hebrew. But I understand that part of the project is that he's trying to get these solar panels into Africa, right?
Well, really briefly, I'll do my little synopsis super briefly. He arrived in Israel, and he couldn't believe that there's no large solar fields in Israel. There's a lot of sun there. So he decided to start a company, and they, through a lot of struggle, raised about $25 million, and they built the first commercial-scale solar field in Israel to be connected to the national grid. They built it in the desert. He was living in the desert in southern Israel. And I followed him. By then, I was videoing his work there in that solar field. There's a little chapter on that Israeli solar field. But he told my video camera at one point, he said, I got burnt out on Israeli bureaucracy.
That's easy to do.
Israel's a very small country, so it's very easy to monopolize industries. So he looked to Africa, and he had a long-term Jewish woman friend who started an orphan youth village in Rwanda. Rwanda had its own genocide in 1994. So she started it a few years later. So orphans whose parents were killed in many horrible ways could come and study and live at that orphan youth village. And then they got their heads together, and they, through tons of struggle, raised another approximately $25 million, and they built the first large solar field in Africa that was connected to the Rwandan electricity grid. Half of Africans have no electricity in their homes.
That's unbelievable. What do we say? A mitzvah, which is a good deed or commandment. And you told me a funny thing when we were talking about it, because Yossi got so fed up with Israeli bureaucracy, and Israel is notorious. You are, if you think catch 22, that's like the entire society basically. But then he thinks it's going to be better in Rwanda. That's the funny thing, is that African bureaucracy is also known for its incredible bureaucratic nature.
No, of course. So I went to Rwanda with him about 6 years ago. The solar field had already been finished, but I videoed there, and I met a lot of Rwandans, and he talked a lot about what you're saying. And that's all in the movie. In the trailer, you can see, actually, there's a bit where he got a offer for a bribe. And he told my video camera that no, he's an honest Jewish guy. He doesn't accept bribes. It's complicated. There's a legacy of colonialism in Africa. I try to put a little bit of that into the story so we don't, have these preconceptions that Africans are corrupt or violent or whatever. There's a huge legacy of colonialism. There's a huge amount of bribery. And just to be clear, you can Google on the internet. There are other power companies, Chinese companies, Russian companies especially. They do come into Africa and they pay the bribes. Mm-hmm. But Yossi refuses to pay bribes. So again, he's up against a lot of difficulty, but he has hope.
Well, what I love about Yossi is he's what I see, and I see it in you too, and at me as well. We're idealists. And an idealist, you think that the world, there's a basic goodness to the world. And then when the interesting thing, I'm sure, in the documentary is someone like Yossi, who's so determined. He raised $25 million here, he raises $25 million here, but he's up against all of just the world, the realism of the world, and he still has to maintain. No matter how much he realizes the world doesn't work like he wants it to, he still goes for it. He's amazing that way. He doesn't lose hope.
He's a total idealist. Again, to bring in the interfaith theme, many of his partners in the movie and in his business life are Christians, Muslims, tribal people in Africa. He totally builds these interfaith connections. And it's not easy. Actually, there's a sensitivity in the world, as we probably know. Sometimes Yossi disguises the fact that he's Israeli now. He just says he's Jewish. So it's tricky for him. It's very tricky. But sometimes he pushes away. He has an Israeli company, and they have a branch in Holland, I think, that helps to disguise the connection to Israel.
Well, yeah, you're caught in between, global affairs, internal affairs in countries, and in communities, cultural differences. What I hear resounding in both your story and his story is you kind of have a foot everywhere. Like when you describe coming to Western New York, you embraced it as kind of a challenge. And Yossi, you said, also was in New York, he's from Boston, and then Israel, and then Rwanda. He has a foot in a lot of different places.
So he builds these interfaith partnerships. There's a few in the movie when the movie comes out. But one of them, for example, is with a Zambian bishop who met Yossi, and they fell in love with each other, really. The Zambian bishop he's Christian, so he loves Jerusalem. He came to Jerusalem for his first time in his life and stayed with Yossi, was a house guest. And so Yossi builds these interfaith relationships, and then the Zambian bishop helped publicize Yossi's work to 10 other African countries. So Yossi's totally capitalizing on interfaith connections with Muslims as well, Muslim leaders. I don't know, should I get into my event vision? Is that okay?
Yeah. Well, why don't we take a moment before you do it just to recognize what we're doing here. Good morning. I'm Rabbi Alex Lazarus-Klein, and this is Crossroads Radio. Crossroads is a joint production of the Town Square Media and the Network of Religious Communities. And today I have with me my guest, a new friend, Harvey Stein, who is a documentary maker and activist. We're talking about his new movie, or movie that's about to be done. It's called Green Rebels, which he told me it has the S at the end. Before you go, why don't you explain what the difference between Green Rebel and Green Rebels is?
Oh, my God. I don't want to give away all my secrets.
It's because there's multiple people involved in multiple.
Yeah. No, just these solar energy fields are built by Yossi and many African partners. Mm-hmm. So it's Green Rebels. They're all amazing. As I said, they're Christian, they're Muslim, they're tribal people, they're young people, older people. So I like to have large casts in my movies. So I've put intentionally as many of the African characters as I can to show that great things in the world are usually made through partnerships, not through solo Trumpian type of things, whatever.
Amen. So before you go into your plans, because I know one of the, as you said, a documentary maker is part like business and then part it's part doing the creative work in the world. Why don't you talk about a little bit about making it? How you said you're almost 95% done. How long? What does 95% mean? How long? When did you start this project?
Started over 8 years ago. There's a million indie films. It's hard to fundraise. Now we're pretty much almost done with shooting, and now there's a huge amount of editing. People don't realize when you edit a 60 or 70-minute film, it's a giant amount of editing. So that a lot of funding goes into the editing and then into the distribution plans too. So that's where we're at now. And
are you doing the majority, because you're kind of an independent? Do you do the majority of the work from the filming, fundraising? Is that all on your shoulders?
I do most of it. I tend to be, I used to be more of an alone guy, but I tend to have a small team. So I do most of it. So it's a lot of work, a lot of responsibility, but it's fun because I meet a lot of people and work with a lot of people.
Yeah, it definitely, I feel the same in my job. I'm a people person too. Not a Leo, but Scorpio actually. But so just in terms of that, I just want to hear about the background. How did you learn to do all that? Because that's quite technical, everything.
Just over the years. Actually, my first art form was music. My mom was a piano teacher and a semi-professional piano player. And I taught myself how to play the piano when I was a teenager in our living room piano. Mm. So over a bunch of years, I taught myself how to shoot, how to edit. I love filmmaking because it kind of combines all the media. They say that 200 years ago, opera was the largest popular cultural media in the world. Mm-hmm. Because it combined all the mediums. And now filmmaking is that, I believe, is the current largest, most popular medium. It combines visuals, acting, theatrical acting, music. When I edit, I love to slot in various musical clips as soundtracks. Oh. So it brings in all of my interests, all of my artistic interests when I edit.
So you've used the term like cast and acting. What does that mean in terms, because I'm not familiar. I know these are just probably documentary terms. So are they?
Well, no, a lot of filmmakers make fictional movies. I make documentaries, but I still think of a cast. I don't tell them what to say. But it's still, who's going to be in the movie. That's the cast of a documentary. And I choose, I have that decision making. I choose, I want this person to try to speak in the movie. I'd love to tempt them to be in the movie.
I see. So tell me, because you're trying to get the word out, so tell me about kind of like what your plans, because I know you have some really wonderful ideas about how to maybe even do it in Western New York, right?
So in my last finished movie about a team of Israeli peacemakers, finished about 8 years ago, I somehow naturally created what I called impact events, where we showed the whole movie and then we had great discussions in the room, which was very easy because the movie was about Israeli-Palestinian peacemaking, very controversial, etc. So I got hooked on those interactive events. So for this Green Rebels, I have an idea that's even more developed, which is that I'm going to have these events. Maybe they'll be hosted in Buffalo soon. They're called excerpt events, where I finished some very strong excerpts of Green Rebels. And to leave even more time for interaction, I plan to show maybe 40 minutes of excerpts. And then after each excerpt, which focuses on another slightly different topic, I will lead discussions or co-lead discussions. There could be a local rabbi, co-leading the discussions, or a local imam, or a local immigrant from wherever, co-leading these discussions, where we get into very personal discussions that jump off from the excerpts. Super briefly, I'm getting, my activist side is growing and growing because I see how messed up the world is these days.
Really?
And I want to create a little hope. So, for example, I've been already talking with a local Buffalo government official whose specialty is climate change. She has a special office about climate change. So, in my idea, we do excerpt events in Buffalo, and then after one of the excerpts, we jump off and I ask the audience, "Hey guys and girls, would you like to be partners just like Yossi and his African partners were? How can we partner in Buffalo? How can a Jewish community here partner with maybe a Black Christian church community? And how can you guys maybe plan for a community solar field and raise the money for it?" And, it's not easy. And then eventually build this community solar field that everyone will get electricity from. How can you guys do that? So we might spend 20 minutes brainstorming in this event of how these local people can literally follow in the footsteps of Yossi and his African partners.
I also understand you have a love, you have teaching in your background, and that you wanted to also work with teenagers or aspiring filmmakers. Do you want to share a little bit of those ideas? Sounded really interesting.
I have many interests on whatever. I'm an all over the map guy, which can get messy sometimes. But I used to teach high school. I used to be a certified video and English high school teacher. So for example, I have many ideas. I'm an idea guy, as I said. These interactive excerpt events, possibly, for example, a few weeks before the events, I could coach some teens in this Jewish community and this Black Christian community to make very, very short videos with their phones, which they love to do, about issues in their community, maybe sustainability issues, maybe all the garbage on the sidewalk, maybe somebody with solar panels on their roof. They might make these tiny little videos, and then we would open our event with 4 or 5 of these teen-made videos, and then that would encourage lots of teens to come to the events, and again, it would create a community effect, not just the old-fashioned passive watching a movie in the movie theater thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things I really love about what you're talking about is, I grew up, I'm a film lover, and I loved movies growing up. I love documentaries, but people don't tend to have the patience to sit for 2 hours in a movie theater, and it is a passive experience. So it connects culturally, so you have something to talk about afterwards with your friends, and it's a great activity. But it's sort of limited, I've found, in terms of really having robust discussions. We have all these movie theaters that are struggling these days because Hollywood and everything's streaming and on phones and all those kind of issues that we have. But the idea that these movie theaters could be used in a more participatory fashion. I really think you're onto something about kind of this next phase of what we might be able to utilize this art form for.
We have a 19-year-old son, and so it's every day I see he's on Instagram a couple hours a day, and he makes his own videos sometimes with his phone. So it's very clear that the movie medium is changing. Sometimes I pretend I'm a 19-year-old and I edit in the style of these videos that I see on Instagram. Really rough, really a bit crazy, a bit rough. And some of the excerpts have that feel because that's the modern language of movies, and it will also attract a younger audience.
Yeah, well, you have to kind of get into the zeitgeist, because without that, you're nothing. I think of it in the synagogue world. I think about like catching a wave. I was always terrible surfboarder. Whenever I try like a boogie board, my uncle in my family, they like to body surf. And when you body surf, you have to kind of jump into the ocean, and you have to time it right. And my uncle says, well, this is how you do it. I could never get the time. You have to wait till it's at the peak and crest and all this kind of thing. But my body's not coordinated enough to do this thing. And I feel like when you jump into the zeitgeist, like in a synagogue, if we find that thing, like K-pop demon hunters that, kind of came out of nowhere, and you can jump on that, then you don't have to advertise as much. It has a natural flow to it, and things kind of work a lot easier. But it's a little like what you do too.
Totally. I want to mention one more thing, since you're
Sure.
getting me so excited about talking and about my movies. I also love politics, and as all of us, I read news all the time. We're now in a giant war, involving the Middle East and Iran. Trump is an avowed climate change denier. Many of you may know he's dissolved various agencies, cut the funding from various agencies. So I'm trying to bring in a little bit of that into the movie. I'm trying to connect with current events in the movie.
Yeah.
Again, because I want to be relevant and I want to be an activist. So I'll have a couple little short clips of Trump showing how he denies climate change. And I'll even have a little bit on, there's a new stuff since this war started about a month ago. There are some clips and some memes that I discovered, and I'm very inspired by, that this war might have an unexpected consequence that we will realize globally because of the craziness of the Straits of Hormuz and the devastation of the global fossil fuel industry. It might stimulate a renaissance of green energy as a surprising consequence to the war. So I'm trying to put a little bit of that into the movie, just to give some sparks of people thinking.
Well, you got your activism came out right there. This is a time, whatever political side you're on, everything kind of gets to us. It's sort of, as a filmmaker, I'm sure you want to kind of tap into people's emotions. And, the rough thing is, you described your son's work and Instagram and all this kind of thing. It's hard not to get emotional when we're, the things are designed, and they're often really short too. So do you have any technique because you said you consume a lot of news, and I think one of the things that people out there do is, how do you not get so emotional, or what do you do with the emotions when you have them, if you're looking at various sites?
I know everybody has different ways. Sometimes I just rest. I lie down and I rest, and then I get an idea sort of coming from my subconscious. Ooh, maybe I'll put that meme in about the war and connect it to green energy. So I write a little message to myself about something that has popped up from my unconscious.
Yeah, I know for me, actually, because we're on radio here, visual arts are extremely powerful in a way. So I think listening to a program like this, it actually is cleansing, I find, because you can still be part of the world in a way and listen at the same time. So I highly recommend podcasts, radios, all that kind of format as a way of listening.
Yeah, get mellow and just listen. Yeah, yeah.
Because there is a real power in what you do and what's out there, and and I also know, for me, if I see too much trauma, I mean, we're in a situation of war, it like affects me deeply, so that's really, really important. All right, we're getting to the close of our conversation. I know we could go on for hours, actually. How would people get to see Green Rebels? You mentioned these excerpts. How do they find out about you?
Well, the best thing is my website, which is JerusalemNY.com. All one word, JerusalemNY.com. There's tons of info there about how they can get involved, how they can even email me and invite me. I hope to do a campaign of these excerpt events around the country now. Again, the time is crucial with the war, etc. I'd love to get a giant grant to do 50 subsidized events around America. Please, God.
Well, we're very lucky to have you come to this area. I think it's very fortuitous. People that tend to come to Western New York, they do fall in love with it. Do you think you'll hang around a little bit here?
I think there's a very good chance. Yeah, very good chance. My wife especially, New York City is too intense for her. She really likes it here.
Mm-hmm. See, it has a way. It takes a while to get here, but once you get here, you just kind of, it sinks its claws into you. So we only have maybe 30 seconds here. So any final message that you'd like to get out?
Really, please outreach to me. Check out my website. I'd love to meet people. It's all about meeting people and doing things in a community.
Well, this is a wonderful place to do it. One of the things I love about Western New York is where the distance between us is really not that far. Everyone kind of interacts, as you said. They're friendly, but open to things. So good luck with all your work. I wish you blessings, and thank you for joining us here on Crossroads this morning. And wherever you are in this world, I hope this brought a little bit hope to you. Take care.